Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the On Soccer podcast. Today, we have a very exciting guest, and we get to talk about the exciting world of soccer ownership within the United States and what exactly the process is with that, what's going on, and we get to hear some cool inside information about the USL from co-owner and co-owner and governor, of the Phoenix Rising, Bill Kraus. Bill, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate you making the time and really excited for this conversation. I think that, the USL is a very exciting area of soccer, global, worldwide right now. So very intrigued to sort of get into the details of this in your career. I guess before we get started, I know that you've been, sort of involved in soccer your whole life before this whole ownership thing. I know that you played college soccer at Brown. I'm wondering just growing up, what was your experience getting involved in the game? How did that sort of passion first start and when did this become serious for you?
Sure. So I grew up in New Jersey in the 70s. And when I first got going as a kid, we didn't even have organized youth soccer in my town.
Wow.
Started out playing baseball. There was tackle football. I was probably playing some rec basketball. Wrestling was a big thing in my town. And in, I think it's 1977, they launched what's now the Scotch Plains Fanwood, Youth Soccer Association. My dad was actually one of the pioneers, an early coach and kind of leader in the club, but it's grown up to be quite a club and a community of soccer players. There's lots of guys that went on to play college soccer, are still playing pro soccer, have played pro soccer, etc. So yeah, I was probably 11 or 12. I first touched a ball. My friends and I, who started playing back then, like to say, at that point we were really just good athletes that were playing soccer. Now there's real soccer players. Kids are touching the ball 3 and they're 4, and they can do things with a ball that we never even thought of back then.
Wow. No, that's awesome. Very cool to hear. And then you mentioned how you it was sort of like the 70s when you were sort of, growing up, getting into this. I think was that I think the later end of the 70s, maybe early 80s, was that when that Pele and all these players would come into the NASL and stuff like that? Was that even part of your childhood or?
My family had season tickets to the Cosmos. We lived half an hour away in the front row. And it was part of this whole thing, blowing up for me. It was, we had Pele and Franz Beckenbauer and Giorgio Chiesa, and we all used to emulate this midfielder called Vladislav Bogicevic.
Wow.
Just some great players. Carlos Alberto. It was like a world all-star team. It was fantastic, and that just kind of pumped it up for me. I did pretty well in high school soccer, so I was a college recruit. Got recruited. I was part of the incoming freshman class at Brown. I played sparingly, I would say. I'm not going to tell anyone, I was All-American or after like that. I played sparingly early in the first couple years, and we just kept bringing in 8, 9 new recruits every year. The talent pool just kept getting better and better. And then another huge thing for soccer back then was, and for that area, was we hosted the World Cup in 1994, and Giant Stadium, I think, hosted 6 matches. I think I went to all of them.
Wow.
And the first that kicked off the whole World Cup was Italy against Ireland, where there's enormous, populations in and around the New York metropolitan area of both cultures. So it was a really exciting time for soccer in that part of the country.
Absolutely. No, it sounds absolutely electric to sort of, grow up with that and see that live in person. Definitely a very cool experience. And yeah, very I think it's awesome how that led you to pursue soccer in college as well. It's very cool how that sort of worked out. And then I guess just in terms of just the transition of when soccer became part of your career, I know it was definitely later on in your career when, Phoenix Rising bubblings were happening and things of that nature. I know that after you had graduated college, you had worked several finance jobs at places like GE, AT&T, things of that nature. You're currently at I think it was Arlington Ventures or Arlington Capital Advisors.
Yes.
So I guess just to start off before we go deep into it, when you graduated, did you ever think of a career in soccer as a possible thing that would even happen one day, or were you just all in on this sort of finance route? What was your process like?
Never really thought about it.
Right.
I did write a paper on the rise and fall of the NASL.
Oh wow.
In 1987 when I graduated, but I never really thought of it as a career. Like you said, I had several sort of finance jobs, corporate lending, private equity, investment banking, all those different things, none of which ever touched sports. So it was never really a plan.
I see, I see. And then when did you end up in Arizona specifically? Was that like early on in your career?
So no, I worked in and around the New York area after grad school from like 1991 to 2005. We moved to Scottsdale in 2005 with GE Capital. GE had just bought a specialty finance company based in Scottsdale, and they were migrating some GE Capital DNA from kind of closer to the mothership out to Scottsdale, and yeah, we jumped on it. It's been a great experience. I love it out here.
Awesome, cool to hear. So I'm wondering, I guess it's like, since you were in Arizona, when did you first notice that like there was potential for it to be a soccer city? Like, did you notice a lot of like following and culture in the city, or what sort of like started that?
Tons. Yeah, there's plenty of
Really?
soccer here. I mean, I don't know the exact number. I think there's 2.4 or 2.6 million Mexicans living in
Oh wow.
state, and they have their own leagues and culture and play every park, every space that's available. And I think
Wow.
that most of their fanhood is still connected to the Liga MX clubs in
Right.
Mexico. I think if Club America or Chivas or
Mhm.
Pumas or Cruz Azul or somebody came through and played in Phoenix, like they'd blow it up. It would be a totally full crowd. But at the youth level, there was just tons and tons of kids playing soccer here. All my kids, all four of them, started out playing in soccer, and really only one kind of played all the way through at the higher competitive levels.
Mhm.
But yeah, there was just a lot of soccer. But what there wasn't was a top level pro team.
Right.
In 2013, there was the predecessor to Phoenix Rising is somebody launched a club called the Phoenix Wolves. It played
Right.
in 20 at the ASU Arizona State Women's Soccer Stadium,
Okay.
and it only lasted 1 year. Somebody else
Yeah.
bought it, became Arizona United Soccer Club,
Right.
and lasted under that brand name for 3 years. And it kind of moved around. It was at the Peoria Sports Complex. So a lot of the stadium infrastructure around here is for spring training baseball.
Right.
It was Peoria Sports Complex. It was Scottsdale Stadium where the Giants do preseason. Back to
Mhm.
Peoria Sports Complex, and then a new group of which I am part of it acquired a controlling interest in the club in summer of 2016
Mhm.
and rebranded it Phoenix Rising Football Club. Um, Built a soccer-specific stadium closer to the 101 and the 202, if you know the area, very close to the Tempe Marketplace, kind of South
Mhm.
Scottsdale, Tempe, very visible from the highway. And we were off to the races with Phoenix Rising starting in the 2017 season.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's very cool to hear. I was looking up like the history of the club, like, how it transitioned from Arizona United to Phoenix Rising. Definitely lots of cool stuff and like cool little tidbits there. For that like 2016 summer, I was wondering like how specifically did you even like what was it just like the company that you would work for that was taking an interest in like soccer in the US, or how specifically did you like become so like full on in this?
Sure. Good question. So, as a lot of these things happen, sort of a friend of a friend, there was
Right.
a guy named Brett Johnson living in the LA area who had this vision that pro soccer and maybe even MLS soccer should come to Phoenix. So he led the charge along with a guy named Berke Bakai
Mhm.
in acquiring the club, and a lot of others that are on the board and now friends of mine got connected, through friend of a friend kind of thing. Like if we should write a book on how it all came together, but
Right.
yeah. And I at start,
Got it.
I small stake. I didn't really have an active role, but in that kind of January, February, March period of early 2017, I was in sort of a career transition between Antares Capital and Arlington Capital Advisor,
Ah.
and I had all this time on my hand, and I love
Mhm.
soccer and I love the project, so I kept raising my hand and say, "Hey, can I help with
Awesome.
this? Can I do that? Can I help with this?" And next thing you know, like I'm in the fabric, and I mean, I think I've been in and around every board call, unless I was on vacation or something like that, since 2017. So I just
Wow.
kind of inserted myself unintentionally when I had some time, and it grew into me taking on the governor role as of I guess this last July.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a really cool story. And I definitely want to go like, further into like what specifically your roles are, like what your
Sure.
duties are like and like a day in the life of that. I guess before that, because like this 2016 season is very interesting to me because I read like a lot of other interesting things about when this like this sort of like period of the club. I saw that there was like a couple like celebrity investors like Diplo, like Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy. Like what are the stories behind these? How did you get like such like,
Sure.
mainstream investors here?
Sure. Yeah, we should write a book. So guy named David Rappaport, he's on our board.
Right.
Time he was an attorney in New York and represented a lot of music people and other people in the entertainment business. And he pulled a group of investors together, which includes Pete Wentz and Diplo and some other people in and around music, and formed a group that maintains a board seat and an ownership stake in the club. Since then. And the other, you're probably, I'll steal your next question. The next thing we did is in early 2017, somehow we got Didier Drogba to come play.
Right.
I was playing weekend soccer with some guys at the time, and rumors were starting to get out around town. Maybe he'd come to visit us and people had seen him. I forget how it bubbled up, but people are coming up to me like, there's no way you're getting Didier Drogba to play for Phoenix. And I'm like, I wouldn't bet against it. I wouldn't bet against it. Yeah, it was really Berke Bakai made the connection, sold the vision. It's a crazy story. Like when Didier flew out here, which by the way, this is this mega star from Chelsea who won the Champions League. He might be one of the top handful or definitely top 10 like number 9s in the history, right? I mean,
I agree. Yeah.
He flies out here and we show him this piece of land where we built our first venue. It was literally like in a movie scene where there's cactus and tumbleweed, like nothing there. And we sold him on this vision. And he had been with the Montreal Impact in the MLS for the last 2 years. Right. And was getting sort of courted to maybe go to Brazil or to China or to the Middle East or something like that. For a lot of reasons, this made more sense. He could bring his family here. It's a nice community to live, and he thought he wanted to have a career, post playing in the front office and in management. And so, the arrangement we struck was, if he wanted to, he could stick around and go from player to something in the front office on the sporting side of the business.
Got you. No, that's stuff that, first of all, just absolutely crazy story. I think especially right after joining a club to make a splash in this way, one of the, maybe you should write a book, maybe make a movie about it too, honestly. Like I'd definitely watch it. So
I used to sit in a meeting and go, and I'd look next to me and there's, Didier right there. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, how is this guy sitting with me? We have a brand new Division II, USL soccer club here in Phoenix, and the legend is sitting right there. And then, I'll tell you one other. So, by the way, he wasn't the only one there that year.
Right. You had 3 major signings, right?
Yeah. So Frank Yallop was the coach at the time, and he had won MLS trophies, I think, in San Jose and Chicago.
Yep.
And just had a great network. So at the same time, Shaun Wright-Phillips is playing for us. Who played in for Man City and Chelsea, I think, with Didier.
Yeah,
Jordan, Peter Ramage, like other guys who had played at the top level. And then maybe not for part of our community here, the most famous person we signed that year was Omar Bravo.
Yeah, from Guadalajara, right? Yeah.
Yeah. He had played center forward or number 9 for the national team and scored a bunch of goals. When he was for maybe, for that first season, man, we packed the place with the local Mexican, face. I even went on a road trip one year. I tell this story all the time. That first year, the team played in Reno, and I happened to be doing business up there, so I went to the match. And I was expecting to see a lot of Chelsea kits in the stands, people there to see Didier. A few, but the red and white striped Chivas jerseys filled the place. Like people just,
oh my God.
Everybody wanted to come out and see Omar Bravo and have picture with them and have them hold their baby and take a picture. Like it was like going around with Mick Jagger or something like that.
That is crazy. So, oh my God, first of all, just hearing this story, one of the craziest things ever. I can't imagine what it feels like to just be in the presence of all these guys and see that in person. I guess the first thing I think of when you mention all this, is it controversial to say, like, in USL history, this is probably the most iconic, like, little like transfer market spell, I think? Like, I can't think of anything like this in the league, right?
Yeah, it's unprecedented. There's other great players who've played in the league, but nothing like that. One other like starstruck story I'll tell you. So because of the mega power of Drogba,
Mm-hmm.
An event management or tourism group reached out to us in that first off season and invited to bring our whole team to Quito, Ecuador, and play a couple exhibition matches. And they would, sell tickets and, have Didier make a few appearances. So we went. It was my first time in Ecuador. Beautiful city, really high elevation. Like I want to say it's 9,000 feet or more. Really tough for the guys to play soccer in. But people out of the woodwork. I was actually felt unsafe a few times going into a stadium or into a mall to make appearance with so many people. Again, having Didier at the time was like traveling with the Beatles or something like that. Back in like it was just crazy.
Wow. No, definitely very cool to hear. And I'm sure like, it'll come up more as we go throughout, but just an insane story to start it off. So definitely very cool to hear about that. And I guess that this 2017 season that you had was sort of just like a catapult for like a really good streak of like, I think until like this year was the playoffs every single year for y'all after that, right?
That's right. So 2017, we got in the playoffs for the first time.
Right.
18, we had a deep run in the playoffs. We won the Western Conference over in Orange County. I have these moments in my head where we celebrated. Right. So that was That's one. Awesome. And then that was like on a Saturday night, and we had to turn around real quick and get to Louisville to play on a Thursday night, just a few days later. And Louisville's kind of the, I don't know, they're the golden star in the league. They've got a great stadium, won the cup. They've been to the finals a bunch. We were just there last summer. They have a great training facility. They also have a women's team, pro team there. So anyway, we lost 1-0 that night. It was really cold. I'll never forget it. But it was our taste of it, right? Mm-hmm. And then 2019, we came back. Didier retired, and we knew we needed to get the team younger. Like Didier was playing for us at age 39 and 40. I mean, most of the guys you're watching when you watch the EPL on Saturday morning are 25 to 29, maybe young 30. That's the heyday, right? So we knew we needed to get younger. And 2019, we just had a magical team and had a magical run. Yeah, we got rest that year. We won 20 consecutive matches, which is
insane.
Soccer, it's just crazy. And we had some like crazy comebacks, like we'd be tied late in a match, and all of a sudden at the death, like somebody pounds one in, and the streak just kept going. It was pretty special. And we were sort of upset in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I think Real Monarchs beat us and then went on to win it that year. And then 2020, it was the COVID year, which was a mess.
Right.
Not good. But we just seemed to be snake bits. So we fought through the playoffs again, got to the final again. I was flying to Tampa on a Friday for a match on Saturday. And by the time I landed, the league had postponed the match.
Wow.
A bunch of guys on the Tampa team had gotten COVID. And so we were named co-champions. And the whole Phoenix contingent flew to Tampa, hung out on the beach for a few days, awesome. Complained, but that we didn't get to play. But what are you going to do? It was a crazy time.
I agree. No, definitely a crazy sequence of years. And I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is wondering about this, the like fan base and like the support at like home games, like throughout like 2017, even like after Drogba retired. Did you notice that it was like, still continuing at the same momentum, that people really like packed the stadiums throughout all these seasons?
Yeah. So 2019, after Drogba retired, was our biggest year. I mean, we were winning.
Right.
Winning just breeds, success. You sell more tickets, you sell more food and beverage, you sell more merch, more sponsors want to be around you. Like winning just, raises the tide for a lot of things. But we had our stated stadium capacity at that time was 6,200. We were, I think, on average for the season, well over 7,000, which means we were selling standing room only tickets, and people were like standing in the corners and, not every match was probably bustling at the seams, because every once in a while you get a Wednesday night or something like that. That's not Yeah, we were packing it then. It was kind of rock and roll times. We also had the if you did some poking around into the past, somehow we started on this promotion of dollar beer night.
I read
Uh,
about that. Yeah.
so it just started innocently enough, and I maybe in 2017 or 2018, we had a couple Wednesday night matches. We don't love Wednesday nights. We have half the attendance, and we're like, how do we get more people out?
Right.
We were located really close to Arizona State. There's like 60 or 70,000 undergrads. We're like, what if we do a dollar beer? Get a whole bunch of the young people come over. And going into 2019, we decided maybe we'll do it on Friday nights. And we had a few Friday night matches this year. But as we look back at the calendar at one point, we'd gotten to like 15-0 on dollar beer night. Like we had never lost on dollar beer night. And the dollar beer night was really dollar Bud Lights. Bud Light was all of this kind of, attention and media attention and impressions without really trying. They actually sent out a film crew and created a mockumentary around it, which they put out. It was really funny. Some of our players and coaches were being interviewed and saying tongue in cheek, like, oh, this is the greatest streak. It's better than like Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak and Tom Brady going 18-0. It was definitely a fun time. Definitely a fun time.
Absolutely. That's awesome to hear. And then, I think we've sort of like, covered a good amount, just like, like the memories, and I'm sure we'll get more into just about your time at the club. I did want to sort of like dive deeper into your specific role and like a couple of things about it. So I guess just for everyone listening, even myself, what exactly does it mean to be the governor of a soccer club?
Good question. So it's actually a term that comes from the league. Every team has a governor. In a lot of cases, it's probably the principal owner. In our case, it's not the principal owner. But you represent the club at the league board of governors meeting. And in our case, I sort of chair our board, and the guy who runs the club on a day-to-day basis, the president of the club, technically, I don't know, I guess reports to me. Like, I'm just closest to the club and to the league front office as a representative of my co-owners and fellow board members.
Absolutely. Okay. No, yeah, definitely makes sense to me. And then I guess it's like in terms of like more specific stuff about that, in terms of this like because I know that like Phoenix isn't like solely what you do. I know that you have like a job outside this and stuff like that. So what's your schedule for the club like? Like, is it just like, do you attend like board meetings and things of that nature? Like, is it like so how does that work?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. Based on my background in banking, I spend a lot more time when we're raising capital or we're extending our loan agreement with the bank, or kind of all the finance capital structure type stuff. I don't pretend to get involved on the sporting side and select play. Or I did help interview the coach, but we stick to our knitting. And so most of my time is there. And then we call it a board. It's really been more of a operating committee, because the last number of years, this group has put a lot of time in. We get together every Friday morning.
Wow.
For like an hour and talk about whatever we need to talk about, capital raising. Sometimes we have the coach come on and he tells us what's going on with the team. Unfortunately, we've had to move our venue a couple times. So a lot of it is, been focused around relocation and real estate and where we're going to be. But anyway, the group meets every Friday morning. We try and keep it to an hour, but I don't know, 90 minutes is probably a better average. And it's more like an operating committee than just a board that swoops in 6 times a year.
Right. That definitely makes sense. And then, it's just like you speaking about your experience sort of like brings to my mind, like, I guess like, myself included, and a lot of listeners of this podcast are people that like, potentially like either play soccer or like want to be in some, sort of like way involved in the industry or business of soccer one day in like the future, things of that nature. Sure. What was it like transitioning from being like a career like banking and finance guy into the soccer world, like back when you got involved in 2016? Like what was it very difficult to transition? Did you find it easy because of your experience, or what was that like?
It was, a lot of things were new for me. I mean, essentially you're running a consumer facing events business. If you think about it, like we have 7 matches a year. Those are 17 events. If we were on Broadway, like there's a certain number of performances you're going to have with your show, and you need to sell tickets and provide a great experience if you want people to come back, right? So I've learned a lot. I've never really been, focused on consumer retail sort of running a business. I've been a lender and an investor in those sorts of businesses, but so there was a lot of learnings, kind of seeing how the sausage is made and being, involved in the day to day and seeing how we do things, whether we're talking about ticket pricing strategies or marketing strategies or, yeah, which software, systems to use for various things. I mean, there's just things I hadn't really been exposed to before, but it's all been interesting to me. I enjoyed learning new things, and I had to get over the starstruck thing at the start about sitting next to Didier or talking to Shaun Wright-Phillips or whatever. But it's a business, and we have 17 performances, mostly on Saturday nights between March and October, and we need to do our best to fill up the place and generate revenue during those 17 events.
Absolutely. And I think it's very interesting how you mentioned that, like, your job isn't necessarily like while you do like have some, like, maybe some reach into like the soccer operations, yours is more like, in your specific area, whether it's regarding capital or how to get people in the seats and stuff like that. When I was like researching Phoenix Rising, I think that one thing that really intrigued me, especially with the trend of like, many soccer specific stadiums and USL and MLS becoming a thing, is that I think that like, while you've been at Phoenix, at least there's been like a couple of stadiums that you've been involved in, right? And there's a new one coming now. So I was wondering if you could sort of talk me through the journey of like, first of all, why a new stadium and why it's a specific location at this point, and what was like the story behind like, the other stadiums that like were in the past.
Sure. So we've referred to our stadium as a pop-up stadium. We're using the same structural support beams and seats in all three places.
Oh, wow.
Same seating vendor that comes in and does the Waste Management Open and builds all this structure, around the whole 16, 17, and 18, and then disassembles it and brings it back again the next year. We started at a location, we refer to it as the Solana site, but it was in the immediate southwest corner of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. And there's a family that has this 500 and something acre parcel down there, or group of families called the Solana Group. And we were super appreciative and thankful that they had a vision to bring us there in 2017. Phoenix Rising was a brand new brand, and we called around a lot of other landowners and cities, and they're like, who? They're like, what are you guys? We don't get it. We don't know who you are. And we had a great little setup there. Like I said, we had capacity of 6,200. We played 4 seasons there, but we were sort of outgrowing it. And the folks at Solana had a bigger vision for the property. We're trying to do a deal with somebody to come do a master development for the whole thing. And so anyway, we were poking around, and a different Indian community south of the city called the Gila River Indian Community was interested in bringing us down there. And we signed a very attractive deal. They were incurring, absorbing some operating costs, which made it attractive, and had a vision of maybe building a big permanent stadium for a first division team, and other things. And so we went down there in 2021, and they invested a whole bunch in the project. We had 2 training fields, a game field. We brought our seats down there. We brought our whole operation on site. We have some modular buildings where the front office sits, and the locker rooms and the visiting locker room. So we were all at one site. It was a really nice facility. So nice that Sporting Kansas City comes in and uses our facility in January every year for
nice
kind of preseason training. Like the Cactus League in baseball, there's a lot of MLS teams that come to Arizona and probably Southern California and Florida in January to start training. And last January, after Sporting left, the U.S. men's national team used us for January camp. So
that's right.
Berhalter was here with a whole bunch of mostly the MLS guys, but like Walker Zimmerman and a couple of the other guys that you saw World Cup were here. So that was really cool. So we had a really nice facility. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I think the short answer, folks at Gila River decided that they wanted to do something else with that land, which was unexpected to us. And so we were forced to scramble and figure out another place, which takes time and takes money and takes attention and resources. And it was not the plan, and it's not been cost effective, but we are really excited. we're finally moving to our namesake, to the city of Phoenix. We'll
Yeah.
have a very central location, literally on the northern border of the big Phoenix airport. Like when you land on a plane there, or you're standing in the terminal or in the parking deck, and you look north, you're going to be looking into our new stadium. And it's the same
Wow.
stadium we had at Gila River. Again, we had to hire the company to come in and disassemble it and pack it up in crates and drive it up the road and, reassemble it. But it's got a lot of really attractive features. I mentioned central. It's also, for the first time, very accessible in today's environment of kind of focus on inclusion and equality.
Right.
The Valley Metro light rail system goes right in front of this site and stops right at our site already, because across the street to the north is Gateway Community College. So you can be anywhere, downtown Phoenix, Mesa, Tempe, all these places. And in a deal we struck with Valley Metro, for free on game day, with your ticket, get to the Phoenix Rising venue. And that's completely different. When we were at Gila River, we were at least 10 miles south on the highway. You needed a car. There was nothing else. I mean, the casino was, maybe half a mile away, but there was nothing else out there. It was really a destination. So we're excited about this being central, being in Phoenix, having access to the light rail, and really controlling our venue. Our prior to land partners were Native American communities, I said, and they had certain rules, which I respect, but like an American tradition is to tailgate at a sporting event, right? We couldn't do that at a prior location, and our fans didn't like it.
I see.
They can tailgate now. We just announced that this week in a couple of our parking lots. So we're just kind of bringing some added energy and excitement. I'm optimistic about this new site. We kick off there on April 1st, and I think we're going to fill the place with 10,000 and just go from there.
That's awesome. Definitely very exciting. Like first of all, I think this idea of just like the pop-up stadiums, I wasn't even aware that was even a concept. So I think it's a very innovative way to, host these events, and, the accessibility, the location, everything about this sounds like it's going to be a home run. So I'm very excited, to see how it goes when that home opener comes. But
yeah.
I guess, before, because I do want to talk about just like the state of the club and like what your expectations and goals are for this season. I guess before that, just like looking back at your experience at Phoenix Rising, and maybe just USL overall too. I was wondering, just like very generally, one, what are the biggest challenges, would you say, of being an owner in USL? And two, I guess, like, what would you say, I guess, like, how has the league overall changed since you were first involved from like a business standpoint? Like, are there differences there? So if you ever want to speak on that.
Yeah, a couple things. When we first got involved, I would say Major League Soccer and USL were sort of chummy, or had a good relationship. And I don't know that they don't now, but it was better because at least like 10 or 12 MLS teams had their second team playing in USL.
Yeah.
So a lot of our Western Conference opponents was LA Galaxy 2, Portland Timbers 2,
right,
Seattle Sounders 2, that kind of stuff. Over the last couple of years, we've kind of split apart, and MLS has launched its own lower level, product where just their second teams are playing. And so this, I think it's 24 or 25 independent teams, not affiliated with an MLS club, playing in USL Championship. And I honestly think the level of play and the talent level in the league has really risen over the last number of years. Mm-hmm. From the time I went and saw the team in 2014, 15, 16 to what's out there now, the talent level has really grown, and the talent level in this whole country has grown, right? I mean,
right.
Look at all the young guys playing abroad, and for the that wound up on the U.S. men's national team, right? Guys playing at Leeds and Dortmund, and great clubs over there, Fulham, etc.
Absolutely, no, definitely very cool to hear, and I think it's very interesting to see how the league will change, how the business standpoint will change over the next few years. I do want to talk about the club's investment and just like promotion of just like women's professional soccer and like the youth sphere as well, because I think those are two very interesting areas. I guess just like overall, because I'm not very specifically aware of like the initiatives the club has taken in these areas. I guess we can start out with like women's pro soccer first. Like, what is the state of affairs regarding that in Phoenix currently?
Yeah, it's very topical. The NWSL is the Division I women's pro league in the country at the moment, and they were running an expansion process recently. I think they've announced one or two new teams. We evaluated that. We haven't jumped in there, and our league, USL, has announced they're launching what they're calling the USL Super League, which is supposed to launch in 2024. Are trying to get current USL franchises as well as independents to launch a new franchise in that league. And so we're evaluating that as well. We think it would be really interesting. I mean, the Suns, have their sister club, if you will, the Phoenix Mercury, in WNBA. And, I think for a lot of reasons, it could make sense for us. The women's sport is growing. There's tons of female players playing at the collegiate level in this country, with, limited options to play professionally. There's only 12 going to 14 NWSL teams, and a lot of them are going to Mexico or going to Europe. Why not have, more depth and opportunity here? And I think it opens up a whole nother avenue for sponsor partners. Think about if you're a corporate sponsor and you're pouring all this money into men's sports, you have pressure now to also support women's sports. We think there could be a whole untapped, avenue out there for new partners to come support professional women's soccer in Phoenix. And then maybe one other point, you kind of touched on youth. We have a big youth organization. Like there's 6, 7, 8,000 kids. I should know the number, but I forget. Playing, all the way from recreational up to top level academy.
Wow.
Youth with the Phoenix Rising badge on every weekend around the state. There's a lot of kids, and currently only half of them can say someday they can go play for the first team, right? Which is the pro team. If we had a women's team here, the other half, same thing. And we think that would be, we think it's a win. Plus, we already have a facility. If you think about any business, like we have a facility that we're only doing 17 events.
Right.
It'll be nice to do 32. We've already paid for the place, right?
Absolutely.
So we're seriously evaluating it. We haven't launched anything. We haven't announced anything. We haven't committed anything. But it's topical, and you now know the most about it of anybody in Phoenix outside our board, because we haven't said anything anywhere.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, definitely very excited to hear. And yeah, no, appreciate the information as well. That's very awesome. And, I think investment in this side of the game is something that's very crucial. And like, as you said, very topical, and we see it across the nation. So very interesting to hear your perspective on it. And then, before we close out and go into the back four quiz, I sort of just do want to get like an understanding of like, the current state of the club, like what's sort of going on right now. I know that the end of last season probably was a little bit underwhelming compared to the past few years, and maybe it's fair to characterize now as like a rebuilding era. I think I saw that only like a couple of the players have re-signed, right? Like you're starting off with a pretty much new clean slate. So from a career perspective, I'm guessing that working in soccer at a time like this is definitely very interesting and challenging. So I'm wondering, compared to your like past few years, your success at the club, what is it like going through this sort of period, and what's like your personal strategy like to sort of, adapt and, succeed from here on?
Yeah, saying rebuild is fair. We've called it reboot. We've called it Phoenix Rising 2.0. Last year, winning on the field and off the field. We had some challenges operationally. It wasn't a great guest experience for our fans. And we learned that that impacts attendance, right? Our attendance was down last year, which would generate less revenue, and it's not a good formula. So I can tell you we had a kickoff meeting with the team at the end of January when they first got into market. And I'll tell you more about the team in a second. But the theme, we got to get back to work. Hold on 1 second. I had another call coming in. I had another call about that. We have to get back to work. We have to be humble. We can't talk about, dollar beer night and, getting to the championship and this and that. We need to come to work and do the work every day. Do all the little things, be the best, do all the work, be a family, be a team. And anyway, just kind of, we just had to be humble and kind of get back to basics to do the work. The other things will come. And then with the team, look, we hired a new coach late last year, and the roster turned over significantly. We have, maybe a handful of returning guys that have played meaningful minutes on the team. So there is really a brand new roster. The guys, and we had a different process for finding people. It became a lot more scientific for us. We used, data science for the first time. And we've looked abroad and looked for opportunities. And we've always wanted to focus on character. We want the right type of people here that, respect what we're trying to do and fit into the culture and stuff. But we added data as well. And so you're going to see a completely different style of play this year. And I was just down with the team in Mexico City 2 weeks ago. We took the team down there to spend some time together and kind of build that trust and feel and, knowledge of each other. And yeah, I'm really excited about this team. We have a lot of talent. We have a lot of depth. We have guys competing at every position. There's no clear starters right now. Like we have one. Now we got to get everybody healthy, which is another thing. We've sort of had the injury bug during preseason here, and this first weekend we have one guy with an international call up to go play for Panama in an exhibition match. Another guy's wife is expecting. Another guy went home to a funeral for his grandmother, and we have a bunch of injuries. So I think we're carrying 2 or 3 youth players from our academy.
Oh, nice.
Road trip to Charleston. But I don't know, to answer all your questions there about the vibe for this year, I think that's kind of sums it up.
Absolutely. No, it's definitely very interesting to hear. And, I'm excited to see what the on-pitch production is, especially after a transition period like this. And I guess just in general, you're speaking about the roster. Are there any players that you're particularly excited about that you think may make waves in USL that you think that, that you're looking out for?
I think so. The guy I mentioned who has the call up with the Panama national team is Carlos Harvey. He came to us from the LA Galaxy system. Really versatile player. Play center back and play back and play like a 6, like a holding mid sort of position.
Nice.
Really excited about him. Kev Lambert is back for his 6th season with us. Might even be his 7th. He's the face of the club at this.
Yeah.
He's at this event last night. People went crazy. He came out. In the new home kit, and people love him. Just love the way he works. And we have a couple of attacking players our fans are excited about, and I'm excited about. A guy named Danny Trejo. He was in the LAFC system. We played against them in the USL. He played for the Las Vegas Lights for the last few years and scored a bunch of goals against us. So it'd be nice to have him scoring goals for us against us.
Nice.
And there's a few others, but some really exciting guys that'll fit in at the wing back and kind of the number 10 slots. And should be. We're excited and optimistic that we should have a strong team this year.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it sounds like a very cool selection. Definitely excited to see what happens. And it's going to be a very cool era for the club. So definitely excited to see, what happens with that. And before we go into the back 4 quiz and sort of close this out, I sort of, I've loved talking about your career, your time at the club, the challenges. It's been a very interesting conversation. I guess just on a general level, like I mentioned before, a lot of our viewers are people who are interested in the soccer business, have it as a passion, as something that they want to do one day. Myself included even. I guess just from your perspective, do you have any just general words of advice for people who have this corporate interest in whatever they're interested in, but eventually want to be in the soccer world one day? Just anything that you think is important.
Well, I know of 2 ways. One is you get to late in your career like me, where you can write a check and write your way into the boardroom and the ownership group. The other, there's a lot more hard work. We have some great people in our club that work in the front office team, team admin, the kit man, the equipment manager, marketing people, ticket sales people. It's a labor of love. It's not the highest paying career out there early on for people in sports. In fact, a lot of people just practically volunteer and intern just to kind of get into the sports world because they're excited and attracted to it. But there's jobs out there. Our entry level jobs are, like I said, ticket sales, maybe working in marketing, working with sponsor partners. Every business has certain administrative functions like finance and human resources and all that kind of stuff, IT. And then on the sporting side, there's 2 young people, Ellis and Thomas. They're awesome. One's the kit man, one's the team admin, and
awesome.
want to make sure the uniforms are clean and the equipment is gathered and we're organized, and the other make sure our travel plans are coordinated and the bus picks us up at the airport to go to the hotel and the food is in the meeting room, and somebody's got to do all that stuff. And so for somebody
Absolutely.
excited about sports, that's a way to get in there and get going and work your way up.
Awesome. Yeah. Very cool to hear, and definitely very helpful. I'm sure our viewers and myself, I appreciate that very much. And yeah, we've talked about everything. We talked about how you first got involved into soccer, your college experience, your career, and how that transitioned into a soccer experience. So definitely a very cool and experience, and love talking about, your very cool times at the club. To close this out, I guess it's finally time for the back four quiz. So we have 4 questions here. They just relate to your career. They relate to Phoenix Rising. There's a couple fun ones in here. I think you should do a pretty decent job. But yeah, if you don't have any questions, we can get started with that.
Let's do it.
All right, sounds good. So we'll start off with a little throwback to your college days. For Brown University Athletics, I know that their mascot is the Bears. There's a specific name for a bear that is like their mascot. Do you remember the name of like the brown bear?
We also call it the Bruins, but the specific name for the bear, I don't remember it.
It is Bruno the bear.
Oh, all right. That's a name we use. We even call campus Camp Bruno at times, but yeah.
Bruno's really? Good.
I should have had that.
God.
Yeah.
That's funny. No, yeah, just like, thought I'd throw that one in there. Hey, can only go up from here, right? Okay. Let's go to the 2019 season. Yeah. What player was voted MVP for the second time, joining Kevin Molino as the only player to do so in consecutive seasons?
Yeah, that one's easy. That's Solomon Asante.
Yes, sir. I think he was team captain, right?
Captain, and yeah, my wife still yells at me for letting him leave the team. She wants to.
No, definitely. I watched a couple of highlights. Definitely very impressive player. So there we go.
He's coming back to Phoenix this year. He plays for the Indianapolis club, and they're on the calendar here in Phoenix at some point this year.
Yes,
so
I did see that. That'll be very exciting. So
coming.
Very cool to hear. Okay, let's go to question number. Question number 3. We'll go back to 2019 season again. Do you remember what team the Phoenix Rising drew 2-2 to officially win the USL regular season championship in 2019?
I don't, but I'm going to guess. I'm going to go New Mexico United.
And that is correct. Yep. 2-2 against New Mexico United, secured the regular season championship. There we go.
Right? Yeah, it was crazy. Now I remember. It's coming back. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, there we go. So 2 for 3. Momentum's back. Last question. We'll see if we can end it up in a high note. This one's a little bit difficult, so we'll give you like a margin of error of like a week or so. Okay. And this is before you got involved in the club. But do you remember the date that Phoenix Rising, I guess Arizona United, I think it was at the time. Do you remember the date it was founded?
It was definitely November 2016. I remember the event. We did it at the top floor of the Talking Stick Casino, and yeah, we launched an event. I think pretty sure it was right after Thanksgiving, November 2016. At least when we launched it as Phoenix Rising.
Right. No. Yeah. That is when it was launched as Phoenix Rising. Yeah. And then I have I guess the only specific date I have is for when Arizona United was launched, and that was actually March 13th, 2014. So anniversary for that's coming up, I guess.
That sounds right. Yeah, the predecessor started 14. Yep.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, yeah, we'll give you that one as well. 3 for 4. Very solid performance. Only 1 wrong.
Right.
Goes back to college, so that's totally fine. But
and for not remembering Bruno.
Hey, maybe now you will, right? Shout out Bruno the Bear. But anyway, Bill, thanks so much for the conversation. I feel like truly learned a lot about your role, about what it's like working in USL these days. I'm very excited for this new period of the Phoenix Rising. I'm over here in Ann Arbor, Michigan right now, and we have Detroit City FC right now, and they're playing in the USL. So, been definitely paying attention to the league a lot more often, and, definitely a very cool time to see it. So look forward to this season, and I look forward to staying in touch. It's a really, really great conversation.
Yeah, fantastic. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Good luck.
Awesome. Appreciate it.